By the end of the Victorian era, British explorers had travelled across every continent in the world except one: Antarctica. The first major expedition to the Antarctic was on the RRS Discovery in 1901, and it was led by an English explorer called Robert Falcon Scott. Scott was an ambitious young naval officer. In 1899, he heard about an expedition to the Antarctic and quickly offered to go. He stopped working as a naval officer and became captain of the Discovery. The RRS Discovery was built in the Scottish city of Dundee, a city famous for its shipbuilding heritage. After a lifetime of service, the ship is now a popular tourist attraction in its hometown. It was powered by both steam and sails, and was designed to sail through the icy waters of the Antarctic. Scott's team included naval officers, including another famous explorer, Ernest Shackleton, and scientists who wanted to learn more about the area's plants and wildlife. On the 6th of August 1901, the Discovery left the UK. After a 5-month voyage via Cape Town and Lyttelton Harbour in New Zealand, the ship arrived on the coast of Antarctica on the 8th of February 1902. The crew immediately set up camp, building a large hut which is still there today. This is where they stored their supplies while they lived on the ship. The crew continued to live on board as the Antarctic ice froze around the ship. Scott expected this to happen, but it meant that nobody could leave, and they ended up staying a lot longer than predicted. If the ship hadn't been designed for Antarctic exploration, it probably would have broken. But fortunately, it didn't. However, the crew had to wait for the ice to melt. They stayed on board for months, carrying out research, and when they were bored, playing games. Eventually, Scott suggested they leave the ship and venture south. He wanted to try to reach the South Pole on foot. 2 others, Edward Wilson and Ernest Shackleton, agreed to join him. They trekked through storms and blizzards, but they didn't reach their destination. This may have been a good thing. If they had reached the South Pole, they might not have had enough supplies to get back. But they survived, and when they returned to camp, 2 relief ships had arrived, and eventually the crew managed to free the Discovery using dynamite. On the 10th of September, the ship arrived back in London, and Captain Scott became a national hero. But his desire to reach the South Pole grew over the years, and in 1910 he left again for the Antarctic. Sadly, his mission ended in failure. He was beaten to the pole by the Norwegian explorer Roald Amundsen, and Scott and his men tragically died on the return journey. However, if he hadn't returned to the South Pole, he wouldn't have become Scott of the Antarctic, one of the most famous British heroes of the 20th century.